Oh, 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 oh. Look at
O'Reilly.
that hat. Oh, look at it.
Would you look at it?
Georgia Wheezy, cream to the maximum, a B-axonum. Would you like to bounce with your brother that's platinum? How is everybody doing?
Salutations.
Boy, I got this other light set up that I bought for video stuff that does a bunch of different colors too. So I got one over here. I got one over here.
Nice,
One's
nice.
red, one's blue. I feel like I got this Kylo Ren stuff going on. And I have the camera in a different spot than I usually do too.
You look a little more shadowed.
I might, I don't know. But
How's my audio?
it's fine. It's perfect.
Excellent. I
Reptile
rushed.
nerds.
I was rushed to plug everything in, and I don't know if like when I come in from inside to outside,
Everything sounds fine.
everything has condensation, and I'm like all worried I'm gonna like short circuit something. So
Well, fortunately, we don't use expensive mics around here. So if you need a new one, we just buy another one for $20.
well, I'm not too worried. Actually, I keep it in the case. It's actually nice. I try and
Yeah.
keep it presentable.
Dude, I freaking love these mics, man.
They're pretty awesome.
For the price, you can't beat it. You
Can't beat it. Ah,
But here we are. This is episode 126
wow.
of Snakes and Stogies. We're back. I feel like it's been a while. The schedules have been weird lately. So like our schedule's been weird. THP schedule's been weird. We had the holiday and stuff. So everything's been a little squirrely, but we're here. It's Monday night, back. And I'm excited. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's good. It feels good to be back.
Instead of getting just the foot, you guys get the whole leg.
Nice. Calves for days. Everyone in your neck of the woods keep their fingers and toes from the holiday weekend?
They sure did.
Good.
It was fairly uneventful. It was kind of the weather kind of sucked here. It's been off and on rainy. I'm sure down there it's been no different, but
it's been gross. It actually like monsooned like half an hour ago, and I know it's summer because I opened my back door and there's just like 25 baby cane toads just like
feed me. Let me eat everything.
Right? What's crazy is, man, like they just, I don't know how or why, but they just don't get as big in South Florida as they do in, northern South America. And it's such a similar, I mean, obviously it's not the same climate, but it's such a similar climate that you'd think that, I mean, maybe they're not eating certain things or I don't know. It's interesting, to say the least.
Speaking of amphibians in South America, there's a new episode of the Amphibicast out that I was listening to this morning that was talking about the history of Tinctorius azurea in the hobby, which I thought was very interesting. I have to finish it. I still got like half of it to finish, but the first half was really good. So shout out to the Amphibicast dudes.
Excellent.
And the good work that's going on there. I think we're going to try and do something together here soon. THP episode or something. I always kind of feel bad when I spring like Dart Frog podcast on Jake because it's just not really his thing. And
not his cup of tea.
I can kind of see the eyes like glazing over when I look over. And he's he likes them, but he's very unfamiliar with a lot of that. So he's kind of
Yeah, I like the whole dendrophilo, all that action, but I don't have aspirations of keeping them, so I try and learn what I can when I can, and enjoy them from afar. Live vicariously through other herpers and other.
Well, it was just this episode was interesting because it talks about sort of when they first came into the country. The guy he was talking to, his name was Nick Zappo.
Okay.
But he's put out a couple articles. Apparently, he has a website I need to hunt down. But he put out some articles that talked about the history of that species in herpetoculture and how like it started out with literally only a handful of animals coming into the country in like the 60s, and then it slowly like evolved, and then somehow a handful of people in Europe got a hold of some, and like how the bloodlines in the States right now, like there's not a ton of diversity genetically, so it's like this guy's making a concentrated effort to get different lines, and sort of mix things up a bit. And
sure,
it was really interesting. I don't know. I just find that cool because it's species like that are like a flagship species for a certain group of animals where like the first thing you think of when you think dart frogs is usually Leucomelis or Azurius.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. Like there's nothing else that's going to pop in your mind. Maybe Eratus, but for the most part, it's going to be Luke's and it's going to be Azurius. And it was just cool to hear like this history of how they started, when they first came in to where they are now. And I don't know. I need to finish it, but I enjoyed it so far. So
it was good, man. It was good. Real quick, plug of a company that has nothing to do with us whatsoever, but I know I saw Clint Martin just joined in, and I know how much he liked. Bang! I know how much Clint Martin loved my wood cup that Anna Maria got me, but this is called a silly pint. Okay, silly pint, and I feel like Clint would really enjoy this too. So it's all silicone rubber, right?
Oh yeah,
and me, Anna Maria, Matt, and Jamie, we got these at this brewery in Daytona when we were at Daytona last year, and the world's most famous brewery. But it's a sippy cup for adults, and it has a straw hole that will only allow to go in, not out, and then it has like a little stopper, little rubber gasket thing, and it's a sippy cup for grown-ups. And like
we've had people ask to order like for us to, because so like koozies and like other stuff like that aren't apparel related, people do ask us for, and frankly we outsource it. So we tell people like, we can do it for you. You're literally paying for the convenience of us basically handling it and you not having to worry about it. So it is more than what you pay if you just did it yourself. But we've had people ask for those because I guess through some of the like promo merchandise websites you can buy those and get them customized and stuff. So they are pretty cool though.
Well, I just think it's awesome because you can fill it full of gin, Phil Wolf style, or like tonight you can have a lovely cup of coffee and it keeps it warm, and it's warm or cold, and it's a sippy cup for grown-ups. And who doesn't love a good sippy cup?
Yeah.
I will say this too, is I've been trying to play catch up on all the podcasts from all of like our network and NPR and all that. And Eric Hernandez show, man, fantastic.
Yeah, that was good. That was a long time coming, man. Like he's been on the list, like the hit list, for a long time. And if we've talked to any of you before about coming on the show, like our hit list is pretty long, and we just slowly work our way down it. And when I tell people they're on the hit list, I don't want them to freak out and think that it's like, a bad thing, or that we're like you're on our bad list or hit, bad side or whatever. It's
no,
that's the hit list. Like we got to work our way down it,
Yeah, but he's a great guy, man, and that was a good show. So kudos to him and you.
Well, then of course, like Luke Myers out in California, he got him a Jamaican boa over the weekend. So he was posting pictures of that, and I was like, it's like, we were just talking about those. He's like, yeah, man, I just learned. I was just listening to that episode before I got this, all excited because it was like, Jamaican boas. So.
Yeah. Who doesn't love Caribbean boas? You know what I
mean? Who was I talking to about that today? I was talking to somebody online. We were going back and forth. It might have been Luke. It was Luke, actually. I was like, for the most part, the Kylobothris group doesn't do much for me, but Jamaican boas make up for all of them. For me.
And see, I don't think
the color and stuff. Like I don't know, the other Kylos just kind of they all look very similar. They all just look very similar to me.
They do.
Jamaicans stand out because Jamaicans are gold, and
Yeah.
What's up, Bert? The Podfather.
Hey, what's up, Bert?
We're not worthy.
We're not worthy, man.
Puerto Rican boas are cool though too. I think I'm more thinking of like Cubans and the Berry Islands and like the Fords and stuff like that. I don't know, but Jamaicans, like that's a bucket list species for me. So, but speaking of Clint Martin, this show is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out: Facebook, Instagram, Dominican Red Mountain Boas. Of course, completely forgot about those. Keller, you're right. Keller coming in clutch once again. So you need a cage, you need a rack, hit up BlackBox. They got some really awesome stuff. We have to get the raffle together for this month. It's already the 11th, and we got to work that out. So
yeah,
maybe that'll be something we tackle over this week or this weekend. We'll figure that out. So
nice.
BioGs. We're gonna have a BioG up for grabs in this raffle, unless anything has changed, which I don't believe it has. That's a fantastic cage. I use them for my rhinos, and they work great. I love them. They look really good, and you get they're the right size without being too big. They're not too small. They're right in the sweet spot. The Goldilocks cage. It's just
they're
right.
they're like a TV vision without all the nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
think like that's my favorite way to like describe it.
The pothos and mine are friggin' taking off, man.
It's good. It's good.
Like growing up the corner and stuff, and like just
nice. What's
good.
up, hen dog?
And I just moved the Barons into the bigger empty one of mine, and it has been holed up in its cork tube, not coming out because I think I shocked it a little bit with the giant amount of space I just gave it. But it was growing so fast, I was like, let's go ahead and just move him into the Bio-G, and then I had an empty slot in the rack that I had to move that psychotic AML mask from Chris into, and just did the usual sort of upgrade shuffle of like you get moved to this rack, you get moved to that spot in that old rack, and now you get this cage, and it's just the constant musical cages. So
yeah,
Keller, those would actually work really well for the Protobothrops. It's a good size, especially if there's smaller ones. Yeah,
I was gonna say if it's smaller ones, yeah. Did we mention the fine folks of the Pacific Northwest?
We have not.
Almost
too busy pining over the BlackBox stuff.
So. Yes, they are joining us tonight in the group chat.
They said they're cleaning snakes, but they're going to be listening, so they're not like
excellent. They're here. They're in spirit.
Involved. They're here. Their ears are here. Their eyeballs are not. So
yes, shout out to Puget Sound pythons, the Gendra, and all of the wonderful species that they work with.
Facebook and Instagram as well. Check them out. I believe they are vending. There's the Pacific Northwest Reptile Show coming up. I believe is what it's called. It's the PC NWRS, or I don't know how it's pronounced or what they call it, but I believe they are vending. So if you're in that area, it sounds like that show's awesome.
Yeah.
One day when we're rich, we can fly up there for a weekend and just ball out and
So. Yeah, and anyone who's ever been able to see their booth, like I've only seen it on social media, but their booth is freaking cool, man. It's awesome. Yeah, incredible. Like I didn't expect them to have like a whole end unit. Like that's very impressive, children. Very impressive. So what are we smoking tonight?
Nica rustica. Oh, you got you a Roma? A Cro-Mag?
No, it's deceiving. I haven't had a CAO in like years. So I was like, you know what? Let me try something that I've never had before. So this is the Osa. I know nothing about it. It was a pretty wrapper. It says Olanco. Olanco Sol. San Agustin. Osa. It's pretty good. I thought it was a little dry at first when I was touching it, but no, man, it's still got good oils, and the cellophane was like super amber, and I was like, I'll take that one on the bottom.
Yeah, fun little hack for you if you're at a cigar shop and you're looking for cigars and you're shopping around. Obviously, don't toss up the box so much that everything's all over the place and everything looks like all the labels are all disjointed and weird looking, but like dig around the bottom, because usually when I filled them up, there was like 4 left in the box. That was when I would fill it up, and those 4 would stay right on the bottom. So you're talking about something that would continuously stay in the bottom of the box for weeks at a time. So Perdomo Lot 23 Maduros are awesome. I actually really like those. I was tempted to get one tonight, but I saw these Nica Rusticas, and I've been on a Nica Rustica kick like crazy lately. Like that new Adobe is really good. I don't know if you've had it, but it's like Drew Estate's sort of price wise, like lower price point sort of daily smoke line. And I mean, this is like $850 for the Churchill, and they're freaking good. The new Adobe is awesome. Like I've been smoking that a lot. But then the regular, this is the Connecticut Broadleaf, and aside from just being super smoky, like they smoke themselves, like you can't really see how much this thing's throwing off. But that is my only complaint with the Nica stuff, is just it's like if you're smoking in a small room or something, you got to open up a door, because you'll smoke yourself out. It's just, I think it's by design, but whatever.
Yeah. You think it has anything to do with a particular wrapper?
I don't think so, because a lot of Drew Estate's darker stuff does it.
Okay.
I think they keep it more. I don't know. Maybe they keep it more humid on purpose, like they keep that leaf wetter so that it does throw off more smoke. I don't know, but it's a well-known Drew Estate Maduro thing, because even the Ligas, like the number 9s especially, do it. You know, they just smoke themselves. So
yeah, oh yeah.
And then someone said the hats look good. If you are interested in a hat, please hit me up. If I get enough sort of to get an order together, because I don't like to throw these hats at Cammy at work all, in 1 or 2 at a time. I kind of like to get them all done at once. Hit me up. And then I'm wearing this new Spilotes shirt that I made. So if you're interested in a Spilotes shirt or any of the other shirts you've seen me post as of lately on the THN internets, let me know.
Yeah, I'm working on a couple designs that I'm going to send your way. So one of them is to go with that Pitiofa shirt that you and Chris have, the yellow one. So
you like the Agurnia Gang one? I feel like there's like 3 people that would appreciate that.
Where did you post that one?
I didn't make it. I only sent you the picture of the design. I didn't actually.
When did you send it? In the Facebook? In the Facebook. Jesus, it's not like I'm 60.
I texted it to you.
You texted it to me.
I did.
How did I not see that?
You liked it, like, because my phone told me, because I have.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that one's great.
It says you liked an image, and I was like, that fool.
Yeah, because I've got an Apple, and I'm a superior phone person.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I thought that was hilarious. I think it's fantastic, and I like how
3 people will like that shirt.
I would totally have that shirt. I think a Gurney are awesome.
You and Julander would be the only people.
I mean, Julander has them. I'm not that cool. So.
Speaking of, Luke just texted me pictures of that Jamaican boa. Nice.
He must be listening or watching.
I don't think he is. It's pure coincidence.
There are no coincidences with Caribbean boas.
So, yeah, your phone told you sign of the times. Yep, pretty much. That was like Phil's busy at work. He saw it and acknowledged its existence, but didn't actually take the time to like really look at it because he's on the go.
Well, no, what that was I was like, oh, Gurney Gang, that's really cool. I didn't realize it was a shirt. You know what I mean? It's just like a logo. I was like, oh, that's cool, because it's not on a shirt. It's just a white template with the. Anyway, I won't backpedal. Excuse me.
Art.
It's art. It's art.
Because of course, of all the the art and stuff that I've come across that's like royalty free and like Creative Commons, I was like, of course, an Agurnia of all lizards is going to be the one that's like, it's like, what are the freaking odds? So.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to take pictures of wrinkles and then make them into like line drawings, and that is way harder than I thought it was. Because
yeah, I've been trying to learn it on Photoshop for some of my own pictures with like some of the Bothriochus and stuff. So
yeah.
If you send it to me, I can probably play with it. And
all right. Well, the other problem too is like getting a good picture of the snake where it's not like, I need a picture of it sitting still, but hooded and not standing up. And like, I get a window of about 1.4 seconds before it turns around and looks at me, or hauls ass and slithers away. So, but I actually got, I sent Matt at Cloud Forest Design some new pictures of some of my animals because I wanted some new labels. And I don't know if anybody got any stuff from the 4th of July sale, but I got a bunch of labels coming, and he did some more. And I'm going to try and help him out with some of the Venomous stuff and try and get those anti-venom labels up and running. And I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited. I love labels. I don't know why, just showing off the animal. I mean, I have to have them by law, but I think it's cool, man. It adds a little science and a little uniqueness to your enclosure, So definitely check.
He does a good job with them. Yeah, Illustrator is much better for vector art. I'm just not as well versed in Illustrator, so stick to what I know. I do use Illustrator at work, but it's very limited in what we need it for. So, anything new over the last? It's been like 2 weeks.
Yeah, the stiletto shed and now it looks gorgeous. It is a rich, dark navy blue with purple iridescence. And when I first got him, was kind of very, very shy. Very like, don't touch me, don't look at me, stay away, go away, human. And now that it's shed, it hasn't done the flying pinwheel thing yet, but you can see how if I made the wrong move, it's game over. The thing is so on edge and like always shielding its face and just arcing and twitching, very much reminiscent of like when you go to touch a hook to like a retic and they do that bucking thing.
Yeah.
And dude, like I wanted to just reach in and like grab the cork piece with my hand, and I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. And I'm gonna be using hemostats, and like trying to grab cork with hemostats is like really difficult.
Yeah.
You don't like think about things like that. And I went up using two hands and opening it wide enough to like grab the whole cork piece. I mean, the tub's only like a 24 quart, right? But I wound up lifting it up, and the minute I did that, he gave like a twitch, gave like a twitch. And I was like, this is not what happened 4 days ago. You know what I mean? And I haven't tried to feed it because it was in shed, but I'm excited, man. I'm gonna probably try and feed it this week, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday, maybe. But other than that, man, nice. No news is good news. I have one of my larger male Cerastes is honestly in too small of an enclosure. He's in a small tub. Excuse me. And it's not that big. What's that?
Animal abuser.
Yeah, I know. And
you're going to hell.
He eats, he poops, he sheds, he doesn't drink. God bless him. And I took him out because I was like, let him stretch out. He always sits there. He just sits there and does nothing. I feel like the dad in my Big Fat Greek Wedding, like, you look so old, And so I take him out and I let him like slither around inside the big Rubbermaid trash can, let him like stretch his scale, so to speak. And I'm like, holy crap, this thing is over 3 foot. And wow. It's probably a solid 3 inches in diameter. Like, it's a big Cerastes.
That's a friggin' diesel Cerastes.
Yeah. And I might get I might tube him and get a tape measure, and just because it's probably one of the biggest ones I've ever had. And but now I think I'm gonna officially give him his own BlackBox, because I need to. I've been toying around with the idea of doing an Egyptian theme and like the backdrops and foam, and then I look at Brenda and I look at Dustin, and I'm like, all these people are having so much fun with foam. And then my buddy Chris is like, dude, I have all the stuff, like, let's just do it. So I have ideas for the Fields Vipers. I have some ideas for the Rinkals in terms of like rock caves and water bowls. And I think that's the next step, man, is I'm going to get him a BlackBox and do it up.
I'd like to do something for, at least one or a pair of the Bairds. But right now I don't have much of a desire to hunt down all the supplies and then put it all together, and then just right now.
Well, I mean, I've been
sounds like, nice, but it sounds exhausting at the same time.
Obviously, I don't have all the hot foam cutting, all that stuff, but I've been like accruing styrofoam from work, and like we got a new TV at work, like a big flat screen. So the panel pieces that cover the corners of the TV, I took those, and then somebody sent us something. What's up? You there?
Yes. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's give
Bark
it a
twice if you're in Milwaukee.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Excellent. I don't think I ever lost signal.
Oh, it must be this 90s 2000s playlist on Spotify that's like 20 hours long. Oh, yeah, sorry, 108 hours long.
Jesus.
All the Creed and Janet Jackson, your heart could desire.
Oh my God. Ugh. Clint Martin, what do I mean by tube him? So with venomous snakes, yeah, YouTube. YouTube.
Hold them in your hand and then you take a video of it.
Yeah, right. With venomous snakes, I don't want to go hands-on if I don't have to, right? So instead of stressing the snake out by pinning it and grabbing it behind the head and restraining it, I have clear plastic restraining tubes, and I coax the snake into the tube. And once the first 2/3 of the snake are in the tube, I grab the tube and the body of the animal so it can't back up. Obviously, diameter of the tube is appropriate, and then I can do medicinal stuff or measure it or whatever. So, yep, that's what we mean by when we say
they use a 5-gallon bucket for gaboons. They just cut the end out of it.
Yeah, right. I have like python tubes, and dude, they're all broken. They're all cracked because the animals are so strong at that size that when they flex themselves against the inner lining of the tube, you squeeze harder to hold on to the animal, and the strength of your hand actually cracks the plastic. So,
yeah. Any luck with the knobtails?
So I've got one egg still cooking. To be honest, it feels good. It looks good, but at this point, if it wasn't covered in sand, I could probably get a read if there was something really living in there. But because there's so much sand, I can't.
Gotta get one of those egg handlers, man.
Well, no, I mean I have an appropriate size light, but it's just there's so much crap on the outside of the egg.
Like the ones that I use that focus that beam in, like it's a bright ass LED, but then when it has a little funnel on the end of it, it just completely concentrates it.
Yeah, but I don't think you're getting what I'm saying. Like the egg is covered in sand,
right?
Like you can't see veins.
Right enough.
You can't. I'm telling you can't. So I actually took a little paintbrush and tried to brush it off, and it's just caked on there, stuck on there. But I do have 2 more females gravid, so
nice.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed we'll get some more.
Very good. Yeah, dude, one of those egg handlers has to be a raffle item.
Yeah.
Those things are so friggin'. I love that thing. That's the best $20 I've spent in a hot minute. That thing, because you know how so the issue with a lot of flashlights currently is they're a single LED diode, and then they have that convex glass on the end of it to help get the most out of that light. It's really hard to candle eggs when you have that convex lens. It just gets in the way, and you don't actually get a good seal around the egg to focus that light in. And so there's these egg candlers that are made for chicken eggs and bird eggs. This is rechargeable, which if it were up to me, it would have just a battery in it instead, AA or whatever.
Right.
This is rechargeable, but it has a little cone that you put on. It has a couple different ends you can put on it. But there's this one in particular that's a focused little conical tube, and you put that on there, and it just completely shoots that bright light straight into the egg. And then I could have all the lights on and I could still see exactly what's going on in that egg, no problem. I freaking love that thing, man. Like I said, I wish I had gotten one sooner, because I don't even have to worry about it now. The little conical thing comes off easily, but it doesn't fall off when you flip it upside down. So I don't 100% that's got to be a raffle item for this upcoming raffle, because they're just I love mine. It's nice to be able to just not have to think about it. Just put it up to an egg, check real quick, and move on. So
yeah, you gotta send me the link for that too, because I'll pick one up. Yeah, because I'm using a little Surefire stiletto light, and on lowest setting it's only 5 lumens, but it makes the egg just glow, right? But I know it sounds asinine. Maybe I'll take a video when I go back inside later, but it's just it's almost like you imagine this, take your chicken egg from your refrigerator, roll it in egg wash.
I've seen the pictures, but I've never.
And then roll it in breadcrumbs like you're going to fry it. That's literally what it looks like. It sucks.
And they make egg candlers that are even smaller than the one I got, that have the same sort of the differentiating factor is just that coned end.
Yeah, well, it's a game changer, man. I imagine.
I'm trying to find it on Yeah, right here.
And Vic Lorano says, just wash it off, Phil. I got to be honest. If I knew exactly when it was laid, like within a couple hours, I probably would have, because the sand was so light and easy when I pulled it out. But at the same time, I think it was probably over 7-8 hours, maybe even longer, maybe 12 hours before I found it. So I just was like, you know what? It looks good. It feels good. It has a little squish to it. I was like, right in the box, leave it alone. And, I'm trying not to be a helicopter mom, and we'll see what happens in another, 40, 50 days.
So mine isn't the same brand I just sent you, but it's like, I think it's just the same people that make it. They just put a different name on it.
Text or
It's
Facebook?
I texted it to you.
Okay. All right.
There's a little like small one that's it's almost like a keychain.
My Apple is lagging. Can you Facebook Messenger it? And I'll put it up on the screen.
Yes.
Thank you. I finally downloaded the Messenger app. And
you haven't had it this entire time?
No, I just use Facebook. What is this? Messenger is an app downloaded from the internet. What?
Yeah, you don't have to. It tells me to do that all the time. Facebook, you can go to hell. You already get enough of my information and my devices. You don't need more.
Why is this doing this to me? Open. I was literally using this yesterday. I don't know why it's being stupid. All right. Oh my God, it's catching up. Oh my God. All right.
What song is this? I don't even know who these people are.
Everyone listening and watching, we are professional, I swear. So there it is. Cool Top rechargeable egg candler for monitoring egg development. Bright, cool LED light. Egg tester for chickens, ducks, birds, goose, Nephris. It doesn't say Nephris.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do I still exist? Okay. Yeah, I got the little spinning wheels of doom on the screens from us.
You're still there. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got. It's rechargeable, and then you use that little tip that's on the top left. And that's what I use. I just put that against the egg, and like that's meant, I guess, so you can take like small quail eggs and put them on top like that. And then the other one's for like bigger eggs, but whatever.
3-hour charging. Look at that girl. Look how much fun she's having.
Checking to see if there's any chickens in it before they eat those eggs and like scramble them.
I've done that.
All about corns. Thank you. Really enjoy listening to you guys.
Yeah, thank you, All About Corns. Watch it like it's not snakes. It's like an agricultural center.
Yeah.
Keeping maize alive.
Maize.
I did something that I wasn't expecting to do. I got a bufo in my throat tonight. Jeez, I keep coughing. I moved the fuscus into bigger tubs. So I upgraded smaller rincals and into cages. And then I had extra 42 quart tubs from Container Store. And I was like, these would be perfect for the fuscus. So they got 42 quart tubs and they are loving it, sprawling out, stretching out. And I was thinking, even though the volume is larger, the floor space is not, let me rephrase that. The volume isn't that much larger, but the floor space really is. And I think about how we don't oftentimes look at, like, we look at the height, right? Especially if you have arboreal species. But we don't always look at the actual floor space. At least I don't. Because I'm thinking about how is it going to fit in a rack? Am I going to be able to stack them? Am I going to have to use heat mats or whatever, right? And I looked at that and I was like, man, this is like double, or if not like 2.5 the floor space of what they're in now. and it's only like 10 quarts more, but they're shorter. They're way shorter. So I was like, well, they don't really climb, so why not? So I did that, and I can notice them actually using it, which I think is great, because for the most time they just hide into their paper, you know.
Yeah. The
Billy Jenkins says it's amazing. Oh, Billy Jenkins.
It's the case with a lot of species, man. You give them height and stuff, I think they're gonna take advantage of it, even if it's temporary and they're just like checking it out. You know, I still think they're gonna explore.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny that that like 8-month-old suboc I got, dude, he would use the specialty enclosure design perches like every night. Every night he would be up on the perch, sprawled out like some, you know, rock crevice out in, you know, the Trans-Pecos, and he would be hunting like every night.
I mean, that, if you think about it, that's almost a form of arboreal.
It kind of is
nature.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you think about the rock cuts and stuff we saw when we were there. Like, some of those are that's just a straight up wall. Like, it ain't even a tree. It ain't branches. It ain't angles. It's literally a wall, and these things are just working their way right up. Yep.
Yeah. So he used to use it every single night. Well, I guess now he realizes that he can sit in this one little spot under the. I still have my newspaper, inkless newspaper, and he sits in this one spot under the paper where the heat mat is, right? And he knows that I will bring the prey item, his fuzzy or whatever I'm feeding him, and I will bring it to him. So now he has learned that there is no need to go up on that perch, because he can just sit on the heat all day, and Dad Phil brings him his fuzzy, and he literally comes out, bites it, yoinks it back into the paper, and that's the extent of his life. So now I'm like making a mission to like at least once a week take him out, hold him, check him, make sure. And like, dude, I only see him once a week, but I'm noticing the growth. And I think it's crazy because there's so many other animals that we have that we see every day or every other day, whatever, and you don't notice that, you know, when you don't look at them for a whole week.
Yeah.
You know,
I've got a chondra that hangs out under its puppy pad pretty much all the time now, and it's something that started a couple weeks ago. And initially I was like, well, that's off of the baseline that I normally see that animal at. So I'm like, okay, that's something's off, you know? And so I'd take him out, and it was one that I thought was a female that's actually a male. And so I, you know, like I said, took it out, checked it over, made sure there's no like RIs or any signs of any disease or anything. Completely fine. Still eats fine. It now just hangs out under the puppy pad probably just as much, if not more, than it hangs out on the perch. And it's just one of those things where it's like that snake has never been prone to doing that, but all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it just likes hanging out on the floor. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, if that works for you, man, as long as you're still eating and stuff, go for it. Go ham. I think it could. The only thing I can think of that would be a reason why it's doing that is just it's a weight thing. Like maybe it is a chunky chondro, but it's not a full grown chondro. So I'm wondering if maybe it's just a discomfort thing. But I've got a sibling to that same animal that's the same size, like almost exact same size, like same sort of body tone, same everything. And that one doesn't ever spend any time off the perch. So I don't know.
Hey man, different strokes for different folks.
That's right.
You know, it's funny is Mike Kosicki says, "Oh, Dad Phil." So Mike Kosicki gifted me one of my favorite snakes, an Everglades rat snake, and every Everglades rat snake I've ever had is a jerk. They're rat snakes.
Jakes are pretty wiggly,
pretty spunky.
Yeah,
well, I can say with bold confidence that Mike's produced baby is the sweetest rat snake. It literally just sits there. I can pet it in its tub, and I've been hand feeding it. And I hold the prey at him, and it just goes,
"Thank you."
Takes it. Thank you. It's the most well-behaved rat snake I've ever had. The Trans-Pecos is like, I'll be taking that now. Thank you very much. Nah, Everglades rat snake. Thanks, Dad.
For me.
So what's on the agenda tonight, my friend? Did you? Forgive me. Did you have any updates from this week? I feel like I've been talking for the past 20 minutes.
Nothing that hasn't been said on THP. Still waiting on the Ghost Tessera Ladies Island clutch to hatch. I was hoping that would have happened over the weekend, and it did not.
How's Thorn Scrubs?
Thorn Scrub eggs are good.
Good.
Those were that was one of those things where I candled them once they came out, and the veinage was very strong on those right out the gate.
Nice.
Five perfect eggs. Dion's are really good. I have a pair of those going to Mr. Matt Morris. Those are heading out tomorrow. The two strongest feeders of that clutch so far.
Nice.
Matt expressed an interest, and I was like, I got you, because I have a lot of respect for Matt. Matt's done a lot of good stuff. He helped out immensely with the Chondro issue of the magazine. So those are going to him. I'm going to have some. So I took pictures of all the other ones, minus I think I have another pair that's going to go to Chris. And so I took pictures of all the other ones, and I was going to post them on Morph Market, and I'm just not confident in the sexes of what I popped on them. So
okay.
I don't know what I'm going to, because I like all their first sheds I left in their tubs with them in case I was like, okay, I'll send this off to Moral and we'll do some genetic testing to see what's what. But then as I've pulled some of them out and looked them over again, some of them are notably longer in the vent to tail length, to where they would look obviously male. Like with Dion's, it's really not that hard to look at the tail and say it's almost like hogs. Like males are really long and females are like super short. And so when I popped a lot of the stuff, I only had one like noticeable male, and the other ones were like still kind of up in the air. So I don't know if I should just label them as unsexed and sell them as is, or if I should sort of wait it out a little bit.
Well, I think you may not even have to. I mean, you may not even have to put them on a classifieds ad. I mean, I'm sure if you put a post up on Facebook of saying, or not Facebook, excuse me, Instagram, throw up on Instagram and say, hey, looking to rehome some of these if there are serious inquiries, and just go about it that way, man.
And then I have a 2 female Caramel Miami that are het for diffused, and Pos het diffused, sun-kissed, and what else? One other thing I can't remember off the top of my head. So those two, for whatever reason, of the handful that Chris sent me, those two have they didn't drop feed off the bat like the other ones did. I've had to tease feed these ones twice, but within like 2 minutes of me tease feeding them, they're eating and it's down already. So as soon as those get probably another 2 or 3 meals on them, I'll probably post those up. Those are going to be really good looking corn. So if you're looking for some absolutely killer corn snakes,
nice,
those are going to be it. They don't look like much now because that caramel gene sort of takes some time to really develop and to come in. I'm keeping a pair from that group that he sent me because one of them is already showing like the colors are starting to really come in early. So I'm like, I told Chris, I was like, I'm holding on to this one and I'm holding on to the male because I can tie that into some of the honey stuff and some of the diffused stuff if they are, in fact, if those possets actually are carrying that gene. So I'm going to hold on to a pair of those, but then the other two, yeah, because it was 5 he sent me. So I'm keeping a pair. One of the females he sent me was for me, not to sell, but to add to my group. So there's going to be 2 females of those available. I think JT at Silent Hill even has some for sale there. I think the parents are from him originally anyways. So
nice.
They're going to be priced the same at what JT sells them for. I'm not going to try and sell them for more or cheaper than that or anything like that. So
yeah.
Once those have a few meals in them, they'll be going up. But Billy Jenkins asked, I'm dumb in genetics, what will come from the Ladies Island Tessera clutch? So we will, because Tessera is an incomplete dominant trait, codom. I say codom because it's incomplete dominance, just so clunky. So when I say codom, you know what I mean. There's going to be some Tesseras in that clutch, and then the Ghost is going to be. They're all going to be het for Ghost. So There's going to be some visual tesseras, but they're all just look normals. They'll all just look like that Ladies Island phenotype, or at least to a degree. So that's what me and Chris are super excited about, because this was kind of a joint project between the two of us. He sent me that ghost tessera female. I had that Ladies Island male. He sent her to me saying, put it with whatever you want, but we're really curious to see what happens with that Ladies Island animal. So we're gonna see. We know what you mean. You're just wrong. Thank you, Cox. Have you heard Alabama is trying to ban all king snakes, Mexican, California, and all southwesterns? All that's not surprising.
And Dylan says he likes how I give the Trans-Pecos a Western accent. I imagine that every time I anthropomorphize what a Trans-Pecos rat snake is saying, it sounds like the narrator from the old Pace salsa commercials. Nothing says Texas like some Pace.
Silent Hill does have some awesome ass stuff available. And that's why I try to avoid their available page, because every time I go on there, like half that list, I'm like, yep, I could use that. I could use that. I could use that. I could use that.
It also doesn't help that they're both in a group chat we're in, and it's constantly like, hey, look at that. Oh, by the way, we have this too. And we also have this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And they post stuff and they don't really like announce it. So you don't really know they have it available until you go and look. And then it's like, son of a bitch, when did he add those? And it was like, oh yeah, I added those yesterday. I'm like, you motherfucker. Damn it. So other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it. That blood red girl still hasn't laid. Like, I've watched the lumps move closer and closer to the vent, and she looks like she's about to frickin' explode. She dropped a slug like last week. So I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find eggs, and she has yet to drop. So, I mean, we're literally talking like any day or night now. I expect her to pop, and I'm super excited about that clutch, and I hope they're all good, or at least some of them are good. I'd be happy if one egg was good. So it's it looks painful. Like it hurts to look at her. She's got that much going on. So
yeah, but at least you're keeping an eye on her, and everything looks good so far. So
I feel bad because I check on her in the mornings when I wake up, and then I usually check on her at night before I go to bed, and maybe I'll check on her when I come home from work. But I feel like that might be why she hasn't laid yet, because I'm like peeking in there every so often.
Yeah, maybe.
And they're not in the black box rack, so it's not like with the black box rack, I don't really have to worry about that because it's so smooth. I don't have to worry about really disturbing them because I can do it slowly and it'll come out just as smooth and go in just as smooth. With this like homemade rack, it's like or like you really have to put muscle into it, and then once it gets to like that last third, it just shoots out. So
spilling your water everywhere.
Yeah, and I feel bad. She's probably like, what the hell?
Obviously, you don't have this problem with the black box racks, but do you have any racks where the weight isn't distributed evenly and it goes when you open it?
No.
Okay, so I've got two of those that it's both of them. I don't want to say whose racks they are, but both of them are on the top left side. And I guess maybe it's the way my floor is or where the carpeting is, because they're on carpeting. And I feel bad. They're king snakes. And every time I open it, it's like, brrr, and the snake's like,
I
what
hate
the
that.
hell was that? I feel bad.
I'm saying this is like, and I'm from a completely non-biased standpoint of black box racks are, I've said it once, I've said it a million times, the smoothest racks I've ever put my hands on. I have AP racks. I'll never own another AP rack in my life. Legitimately, for more reasons than just the fact that it's got the tubs have the stupid feet on them that catch, and I have to like lift the tub up to put it in all the way, and like,
yeah.
So help me God, the black box racks are the only racks I have any interest in having anymore, because once again, I can just open stuff and close it. I don't have water bowls flying everywhere. I don't have to lift up the tubs and put them in. Like, it's literally, I just open the damn thing, I close the damn thing, I don't spill everything everywhere. They've spoiled me at this point, because like that's what she said. You get old and you get tired of certain things, and I feel at the ripe age of 31 that I'm done with crappy racks.
Yeah, especially in the 21st century.
The only reason I have the crappy ones I still have is because I just haven't upgraded them yet because I'm destitute. So
yeah, I have an old CB70 that I never. I mean, I used it. Don't get me wrong, it's used, but I didn't actually ever use it. It was more of like a temp thing, you know. And the only reason why I kept it is because I know that I may need it for something in the future. You know what I mean? Whether it be putting several animals in one tub or whatever. But dude, it's not a good setup. It's not. So I know what you mean.
I still have one of the ones my dad built right over here, and it's like it's not my favorite because it also some of the drawers are okay and some of them are really bad, especially as you get closer to the bottom. But like I'm holding on to it in the event that I feel like I'm probably going to have it soon. Like I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to have to upgrade some stuff into bigger tubs outside of the V35s. So I have it. It's on standby. It's going to take a lot for me to actually feel the need to break it in and use it again, but so.
Yeah. And side note, Mike Cuppins, tired of being inspired, tired of love, so inspired. However that goes. And now everyone in the group chat is saying that their animals have accents of their localities. So that's interesting. That's a whole topic unto itself. I love it.
But that's it for updates from me. The thing that I figured we would sort of get into is like the bulk of the episode now that we're an hour in.
Whatever you want to do, man.
I don't know that we've really talked about it before, but like treating imported Venomous.
This can be either very, very short or very, very long, my friend.
Well, there's just so many sizes and shapes and speeds.
Yeah, and species too. And I say that because certain species I always do X, Y, and Z. Other species I would never dare do X, Y, and Z for any number of reasons. So how do you want to kick this shindig?
Well, let's start off with like with what you've dealt with in terms of things that have been imported, what is the most common imported wild-caught Venomous you've seen, and what was like the first first order of business when they came in? And then how did you go about getting them treated for mites and then internal stuff and like...
Okay, so let's break it down a little more if we can. So imports are cyclical, right? And that depends on both time of the year. And because let's face it, some exporters and importers, they want to get things out. They want to get stuff out, right? But there may only be a particular time of year where the animals are accessible at all, whether it's sandstorms or monsoon rains, or the fact that the dude that drives the boat, he doesn't live there that part of the year, whatever, right? So depending on the locality, depending on the species at hand, is how you're going to initially break down your steps of getting a fresh import, right? The first thing, no matter where it's from, I don't care if it's from the swamps of Indonesia or if it's from the Sahara Desert, the first thing you do, everything gets hydrated. And it's literally open the bags, spill out the animals, look for any kind of immediate illnesses, signs of injury or death, and then those animals immediately go into a soaking tub of some kind. And it depends on the type of animal. Like Cerastes, I don't do that because too much humidity, it's going to jack them up. But putting them in a basin pan of a few millimeters of water, they will immediately drink if they want it. If they don't want it, if they don't immediately put their face in and start drinking, I pull them out. Because the stress is too much, they're freaked out, and they may be hydrated enough,
Yeah, so that's kind of what Henry's alluding to there. He said you need to wait a while to treat anything till stress level goes down, which is 100% true for Gonyosoma and Boiga.
Right.
Those are two groups that you see imported a lot more than you see captive bred, and I am a firm believer in letting them have their internal parasites for a while before you start hammering them with fenbendazole and whatever else. Like that you're already dealing with a compromised animal. You're just gonna freaking blow out the kidneys and any other, liver and stuff like that. Like it's so much on them that let them chill for, I don't know what you would say. Like I'd give mine probably a month before I really started deciding to pump them with things.
Well, and that's the thing, is it really depends on the size of the animal. It depends on the species, depends on the habitat they came from. And certain animals I'll never deworm, because in my personal experience with
Like which
animals,
species are we talking about?
for example, people have yelled at me for this, and I know I'm going against the grain hardcore, but I don't like deworming Atheris.
Yeah,
I
and see
do
that
not like
makes
doing
sense.
it. And I have a pair of squams I've had for
Do you
going
think
on
though
13, 14 years, and I've never dewormed them.
Do you think that is because the likelihood of them eating a heavier mammalian diet is probably slimmer in the wild than it is in captivity? And so if you start pumping them with mice that they're not used to really eating a lot of, coupled with you're filling it with poison basically to kill any worms with an already small species that already has small organs because of the small snake, like, do you think that has something to do with it? Because I feel like that's a group that's, especially squams in particular. I mean, I'm sure they'll eat just about anything, but I see them eating like frogs and lizards being a much bigger bulk of their diet than mice and other things are.
Well, I think your points are extremely valid, but in my personal experience, it didn't, for me, for the animals that I was taking care of, that I did deworm in an appropriate manner in terms of the right chemicals, for lack of a better word, in the right dosage at the right time, they crashed and died. Mm-hmm. And it's I am not a scientist, I am not an expert, but it was my personal experience that I think there is some kind of symbiotic relationship with something that's in there. And let's say they have, a tree worm, which is called the fill worm, whatever. And
the wolf worm,
right? And we want to kill that worm. But by giving it the appropriate antidote to kill that parasite, we've also killed whatever symbiotic thing is in there. And they crashed.
Yeah.
And it's quick. Like after the second dose, skinny, died, done. And I don't ever do that. I don't. So until I notice something, like let's say I had a squam, right? And it's an import squam. And after 6 to 8 months, it takes a crap and there's a giant worm in there. Yeah. I may highly consider putting something in its prey item.
I've had that happen with chondros.
Right.
They take a giant dump and there's a handful of worms in there, and it's like, okay, it's time to get the let me get the panicure out.
But I've only had that happen once in all the squams over all the years. I've only had that happen once. And I'm torn because I want to take care of them to the best of my ability, but I've seen too many go south immediately after giving them the flagell or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that particular species is something that I won't do it. Now, other species, like for example, boiga. Henry mentioned boiga should be given a Xanax the moment they come in the country, which is very true. Boiga, hydrate immediately hydrate, and then I lock them away in darkness. I give them multiple hide caves that are basically butter tubs, margarine tubs, and
ignore them,
and I leave them be. And after about 2 weeks, I will put in live pinkies in a simulated nest, and I'll leave it in there, and I'll leave it in there for 3-4 days. And I'm assuming the pinkies, it's pretty morbid. They may die, but I don't want to mess with it. I want to leave it alone. And I will say that I also try and put them in a room that is not in total darkness, so there is still a light cycle. So like there's a window, the lights in the house come on, and like light will penetrate in there somehow, but I leave them the hell alone. And it's worked very well. I mean,
I think, for me with the Jansenii and the boiga, it was not necessarily darkness, but just a ton of foliage. Just pack out the cage so that if they don't want to see me, they can. There's plenty of spaces where they can go where they don't have to.
Right.
And then like you said, just leaving them alone. That's because
Yeah.
you think about like if they're healthy. I mean, for the most part, being imports, depending on how rough of a ride they've had, they should be able to live with parasites for like in the short term. Like they should have a parasitic load to a degree and be able to handle that just fine.
Right.
Because the point of parasites is to be able to survive off a host and spread, not just like with with viruses. Like if you kill your host immediately, you don't tend to survive very long as a species or organism. Like the whole point is to ride that wave.
Yeah.
And then at some point hop off and do it again with something else. So it's like if the animal is struggling that much from the get, then you might have been doomed to fail from the get go. But
and that's very true.
Hydration is the biggest thing, I think.
Hydration
initially.
Yeah. I've also had animals that came into the country looking like hammered dog poo, and there is no problem with doing 50-50 Pedialyte. 50-50 Pedialyte and water. I've done that too.
I don't know if you've experienced this at all, but I've like Pedialyte, as soon as you open it and break the seal, its shelf life is very short.
Non-existent, yeah.
So I don't know if you've tried it with older Pedialyte and had any issues with that. It may just apply to like people in terms of the electrolytes and stuff like that, to where it's you can't drink this anymore. It's not really any good. But
yeah, I don't keep Pedialyte on hand. I only get it for that specific purpose, and I don't get a big jug of it. I get the smallest container I can find. And Clint Martin, we were joking about the Xanax. We do not give any reptile Xanax. That was a joke. Forgive us. Now, I also think that certain species that are tough as nails, I really don't care to worm them, because like you said, if they have a parasitic load, it's either going to live its life and be perfectly fine, or it's going to essentially, I don't want to say pass it on, but pass it on to a point where it almost rids itself of it.
See, and that's what I've wondered too. Like that's something, and I'm sure there's a doctor somewhere that I can contact and ask.
I'm sure a vet or get yelled at for that.
A vet or something that probably has a better idea of that, because that's always been my wondering. Is like, okay, if they're not in the wild anymore, they're not eating wild prey. They're eating domesticated mice, frog legs, whatever, that don't have parasites, or if they do, it's very minimal. Would that population in the animal itself eventually sort of dwindle because it's not, new stuff isn't getting reintroduced at every meal, or every other meal when it's eating things, you know what I mean? Like every animal, regardless of if it's captive bred and never been in the wild a day in its life or a minute of its life, like you're still going to get like small amounts of nematodes and like things like this. Like we have that going on, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, there is a point where like they do just live with these things and they're just never at a level where it affects them in any way, shape, or form.
And that's also like what Doc Loafman said on countless occasions, how almost every single animal on the planet has a form of Cryptosporidium living in them. I mean, we do too. It's just now we're putting in a chemical that's going to take away certain percentage of something, and it may not be beneficial at all. It may be a hindrance. Who knows? So, I mean, like snouted cobras, dude. We used to get snouted cobras in from all over East Africa. And, dude, those things would poop out some weird worms. But I got to be honest, we didn't deworm them because elapids are tough as nails. And, I mean, I can't recall ever having an issue with it. And, I mean, we may have dewormed a couple of them, but we just didn't do it because it just wasn't merited. Now, I just recently got a bunch of import stuff in, right? And one of which is that baby Chlorecus. So I just checked today, the food lump is finally gone. And I was like, oh man, it lost that lump in 11 days. It took 11 days for that lump to go down. And some people will say, well, that's really long, or, oh, maybe that's too short. I don't know. I never really thought about it.
Was it being kept at a cooler temperature than everything else?
No, it's at 80, 81.
I'd consider that to be on the cooler side, in my opinion. That's
so
below average.
Okay. So now I'm thinking to myself, imagine if I had put dewormer in that. It's such a small baby. Like,
dude, you'd kill that thing.
It would kill it. Yeah.
The dose you'd have to give that thing would be so tiny
Right.
Like it would almost be like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. And then I take my whole mantra on Atheros of not deworming them, so it's a moot topic. But
well, that too. I think if you're also getting stuff at a younger size, that's like fresh babies, you know, like baby corns. The baby corns that I have that I've raised up that were wild caught, I never put anything in them because they're so small. I'm like, the likelihood of them having any serious parasite load is very slim, and I have yet to have any issues or see any signs of any serious infestation or whatever you want to call it. But and I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously not a vet, and this is all just anecdotal and sort of my experience with things. But like, I'm at a point now where if I do deworm stuff, I start out with a pretty small dosage.
Yeah.
And just periodically throw some in a mouse or whatever and do my thing. And that seems to have worked well. I'd rather do more frequent smaller doses than like several large doses in a single meal. I'd like to, sort of.
Okay. So I got a
consistently
story.
Keep them at bay until it's sort of sorted itself out. And I mean, this could be,
which is smart.
Could be a complete moron doing it the way I'm doing it, but I also haven't had to treat anything in a while. So
yeah, but that's valid thought processes, valid reasons. So you'd mentioned nematodes, and I'm pretty sure I've told this story on here before, and people are going to yell at me. I don't really care. This was a long time ago. We didn't know any better. Thoughts evolve, right? So at one point I had a pygmy mulga, right? And when I got the thing in, it had worms. So I contacted a local friend who was not a vet, and that friend instructed me, okay, give it, this dosage, and wrote out, like, we weighed it and everything, and we were doing bovine panicure, right? And the thought process was to take a frozen thawed prey item and use a high gauge, no needle syringe to put it down the mouse's throat, right? So it's not injected sub-Q or whatever. We wanted it to be easily, if the snake contracted with its stomach or whatever, some of it
at
may
least
have
got
squirted
some
out.
of it in there.
Yeah, it wouldn't just break down, right? Long story short, I gave it 10 times the dosage. What did Gendra say?
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, we're thank you, Gendra. Thank you.
Glossing over that one.
Yeah, glossing over that one. Yeah. So long story short, I gave it 10 times what I was supposed to because the guy did the freaking math wrong. And I did that 10 times every other week. So it got 10 times what it was supposed to get.
No survivors in the parasite department.
But here's the kicker. All the worms went away, but it still had subcutaneous nematodes. And that's because no one told me that you can't deworm orally with subcutaneous nematodes.
You have to excise those yourself.
Right.
And
then someone told me that you're not going to do
brave
that.
Enough to do.
Yeah. Right. You're not going to do that on a mulga. You're not. And at the same time, they're like, well, what you could do is you could restrain the snake and then pinpoint each worm and then inject each worm with Baytril. And I was like, I am not doing that.
Baytril, see,
I am not doing that. No, sir.
I've used Baytril once in my life. That was with Problem Child, that chondro of mine.
Right.
And he still has a scar from that. Like, Baytril works great, but that stuff is painful.
Yep.
Like, it causes a burning sensation.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, it works really great, but it's not my first choice. Same with ivermectin when it comes to like spraying mites. Like now I just use frontline spray. Like ivermectin is fantastic for killing bugs, but it is so easy to overdo it on that stuff that I don't even bother taking the chance anymore. You have to keep it in the dark so it doesn't go bad. So you have to keep it somewhere and like pay attention to where you're putting it. Works great on mites. I love it, but that is going to be like my last recommendation for treating mites just because of how easy it is to overdo it.
Yeah. So long story short, that mulga lived to be, I got it when it was about 14, 15 inches long. I'm imagining it was probably 4 or 5 years old, guessing. And I had it for like 12 years and then it passed away. And it still had the nematodes. I mean, there were few and far between. There was only maybe 2 left when it passed away.
Talking about subcutaneous?
Subcutaneous, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I never tried because it could have been not good. In
Yeah,
multiple
and sort of
avenues.
the problem too with that, and I think the biggest concern if they don't get excised or treated is like the worms dying and then the animal becoming septic.
Right.
I've heard of that being a thing. I don't know. I can't imagine it's something that happens easily, or it's not a regular occurrence, but it can happen. I like I said, I've never dealt with those. I've never excised any on my own. I've never had anybody excise any for me. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, if they got it and they're fine and it's not affecting them.
Right.
Whatever, they're still eating. All their fecals look healthy, visually from the outside, not under a microscope or anything like that. I would actually like to learn how to do my own fecals and get a microscope, and because I'm interested in that stuff. Like, I want to see and be able to look at fecals and tell, like, okay, that's nematodes, that's tapeworm, whatever. Like,
right.
I think that's just a handy
bookworm,
tool to
roundworm,
have.
pinworm,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
now,
I don't know, but
going back to certain species, for example, Bothrops. We usually will do some kind of dewormer on Bothrops, but I wait until it's had at least 4 or 5 meals in it, and then I do it, just because I don't want that shock to the system, and I want to make sure that the animal is in peak health before I start giving it drugs. So like Bothrops asper, Bothrops atrox, your Porthidium that you love so much. I don't think we've ever done it with Muda. I can't remember. I don't remember ever doing it, just because they were so fragile. You know what I mean? That we didn't want to mess with them. But like most of the like Bothrops, wild caught Schlegeli, we would do that 4 or 5 feedings. Give it a hit of something, and then honestly, large Bitis, puffs, gaboons, rhinos. Again, 4 or 5 meals, and then dude, those things are tough as nails, man, and they eat a lot. So you pumping 10 cc's of Panicure into a medium rat isn't going to do anything. It's going to do its job and not really hurt the snake too much, in my opinion. But again, I am not a vet. Don't take this.
But I wonder if there's, for some reason, I'm thinking there's like a fat solubility, like where the dosage would have to be adjusted because of the amount of fat to muscle in an animal. So that makes me wonder if Bitis require a different dosage or not. I don't know. That's, for some reason, I'm thinking there's like, it's the same for, I think, some people. If you're overweight, like they have to adjust the dosage because the fat has some sort of effect on how that drug spreads or how effective it gets transported to where it needs to go. I don't know. Like I said, they're just spitballing here. I don't.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep in mind too, with a lot of these drugs that we're getting for these animals, like they're not dosed for reptiles. They're dosed for, a lot of the stuff that I've used is made for bovine and goats and stuff like that, and it's formulated for animals of that size. So it's not like dosed and ready to go for an animal that's tiny.
Right.
And that's why I tend to stay on the smaller side of dosages, just because it's like it's concentrated for a certain amount of sized animal.
Yeah.
And these animals that we're using it for ain't that.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I don't like to tell people that they should or shouldn't dose animals and things like that. I think it's something you definitely need to learn on your own and not point fingers.
Yeah, and would say that
when in doubt, vet it out.
Well, that's the thing too, is that most vets are there's a lot of vets out there that say, "Oh, I'm an exotic vet," and then you bring them a real exotic, and they don't know.
Not a PetSmart exotic.
Not a PetSmart exotic, and I think that a good vet will say, I don't know. We need to look this up and consult other people.
Yes.
A bad vet will be like, oh, no, we'll just do this and that. Maybe we should.
A regular vet is still better than no vet.
Correct.
It's pretty much the philosophy I've taken. It's like, yeah, sure, they've never seen a Jansenii before.
Right.
Probably don't even know it exists. Yeah. But they at least have more of a base knowledge in terms of like these things and these drugs and how they work than I do.
Right.
And if they're not sure, like I said, they have like a whole database they have access to, because I've seen Doug do it, my old roommate, and I watched him because we looked up some stuff one night. I think it was something related to Baytril, and Gentamicin. Actually, now that Dragon Lair mentions it,
Yeah.
I saw him like look it up, and there's like case studies and stuff that he has access to that he can read. And I as far as I know, like that's a standard portal that vets can access. So yeah, they may not know exactly what they're dealing with, but they at least have a fairly decent base of information to reference, and then they know somebody who probably does.
Yeah, they have a venue to acquire the knowledge, if they need it, right? So yeah, I think it's just going back to the original question. Hydration is key right out of the gate. Depending on the species, not too much hydration that you're going to damage the animal in any way. I know that sounds crazy, but certain desert species, arid species, and so on. De-stressing, leaving them the hell alone, and then depending on the species, evaluating, and then obviously getting a bunch of food in them, getting some poops out of them to make sure everything is looking the way you want it to, whether it has worms or not, and then act accordingly depending on the species. So
yeah, and my experience with Gentamicin, I haven't really had any stellar success with it, but usually what is recommended if you have something like an RI or some sort of infection similar is you find out the bacteria and if it's resistant or not to certain drugs. And when I use Gentamicin on some RIs, doing a nebulization of that, I didn't ever really notice any major improvements. So it could have just been the bacteria, and that Gentamicin just doesn't do anything for it. And that's one of those things where you have to get a culture done and look to see what you're dealing with. That's wise. So
yeah, come to think of it though, in terms of deworming stuff, I don't think I've dewormed any of my own stuff in a long time, man. A long time. Because I mean, I have a good.
I don't do it unless I feel like I actually really have to.
And that's
if I don't think it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
I don't bother with it. I don't.
Right.
See, I've only used it as a nebulization.
Yeah, injections are no bueno. I'm not a fan of injections. It's not cool.
Yeah, another fun fact: never use ivermectin with chelonians or colonians.
Yeah,
because it will 1,000% kill them.
Yeah,
as soon as it crosses that blood-brain barrier, they are done, paralyzed.
There is
dead.
Certain institutions that actually use that as a euthanasia for turtles. Certain species of turtles that cannot be released or given away to anyone. I
mentioned it at some point when I had a Baird's that got him from a show, and I was treating for mites, and at the time I was using the ivermectin solution that I loved at the time, and it worked really well, and I was like, this is great. And then that snake was not acting right, and that snake was paralyzed from straight up like the neck down for at least 24 hours, probably closer to 48. And at first I was like, I just killed this snake, and I felt horrible. And I was like, she's still alive. I'm just going to give her some time. Offered her some water periodically throughout, and eventually she did turn around just fine. I think I still have that snake, and I haven't had any issues with her so far.
Nice, good.
But it was definitely scary because I was like, I knew that it was easy to overdo it with, and I was using a solution that was extremely diluted to the point where it shouldn't have caused any problems. But the problem was it was like a hatchling, like a juvenile, very small animal. So it's different because that smaller dosage or that more diluted concentration is still pretty strong when you're dealing with a much smaller system.
Yeah.
So but ivermectin, like I said, it works great, but man, that stuff's scary. It's it works great, but it's also, you're sort of playing roulette. Yeah.
I also think that just going on top of like new acquisitions, imports, removing ticks and mites and whatever else, be very mindful of ventilation, because ventilation will kill your animal faster than any issue.
Lack thereof.
Excuse me. Yeah, correct. No ventilation. And
too much air will kill them.
Yeah, right. I've actually I've made mistakes. I've made tragic mistakes because I thought there was more air holes than there was. or the animal was in the vapor longer than it should have been. And, it's a learning experience for me. So that way it's not a learning experience for anyone listening to it, if that makes sense.
Learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. Learn from
and that's
my
what
mistakes.
I want people to do from mine too. I mean, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of like basement veterinary medicine, but over time you kind of learn how to do some of these things through one way or the other, and it's like eventually you get a fairly decent handle on it. And there is, I think, a degree, if you're in the hobby long enough and you keep enough animals, like there is sort of a homemade vet sort of aspect on some things. Obviously nothing major, like we're not doing surgery on our animals without anesthesia or anything like that, but you do learn the things you use to deworm. The frontline spray I use for mites pretty much exclusively now, and I've not had any issues with that so far. And that's in terms of ventilation, like that's a big one.
Yeah.
Because that stuff smells strong. It's like alcohol based. It's odd. Like it's alcohol based, but what's left is like very basic. So it's like slippery, almost like soap, like leaves this
very
residue.
Base.
Right.
When Justin says basic, he doesn't mean like simple. He means it's base, like alkaline. Right.
Yes. That stuff works great, but that's one of those things where like if I don't even really treat the animals with it anymore directly. Like when I treat stuff now with Frontline, I literally just spray, because when I'm put things in quarantine, they're either on puppy pad or they're on paper towel. I just spray that puppy pad, like I hold it out, give it one good pass. If it's a puppy pad, maybe two, just because they're bigger. Like paper towel, I'll have like 2 for a 6-quart tub. You know how those Selecta-size sheets fit perfectly in there? I'll take 2 of those folded, spray one side, flip it over, spray the other side, let it dry out until I can't see that anymore. And I lay that in there. And even with animals that had mites on them, like it took care of that, no problem, because the animal's going to crawl around and like coat themselves in that residue regardless.
Yeah.
So I don't find the need to spray the animal with it directly. If it's maybe a larger animal, maybe, but at this point, like I think initially when Stephen Kotz talked about that Frontline spray, he mentioned not spraying the substrate or whatever you're keeping them on, but I kind of do the opposite now. Like I don't spray the animal with that. I just spray the substrate and let them do all the work, like the whole gloves and the rub down and stuff. Like I've done that before too, but I found it works just as well if you just spray the tub, and then every 4 days or so, I would swap it out with a new sheet if I kept seeing mites. If it got to a point where I wasn't seeing as many, I'd just kind of let it ride a little longer. But yeah, I mean, that Frontline spray works great, and it's nice to be able to just like spray the paper, lay it down, and forget about it, and obviously keep them separated from stuff. And if you've ever, there's a awesome paper that was put out on mites that I need to hunt down and share around, because it's it talks about the life cycle, and like until you have a better understanding of the life cycle of mites and how those things work, like you have people that treat once and then they kind of go back to how normal setups and stuff like that, only for the mites to show up again a week or 2 later. And it's because of that life cycle. Like that's why you have to hammer for mites every 4 days, every 5 days, if not sooner than that, because they have these phases where they are actually parasitic, but then they have these phases in between where they're not. And so they kind of lay dormant. And that's how, like, when people talk about mites, they treated, they were all gone. And then 2 weeks later, mites were all over the place again. And it's because you have to keep hammering. Like, you have to stay on top of mites for an extended period of time. We're talking like a month straight, at least, to make sure you've killed off all the eggs and you've killed off all the females and stuff that are dropping them. Because they're like exponential in how they reproduce. It's really wild. That paper, I need to hunt down and send it to you. I'll probably put it in the THN Facebook group too, because it's really interesting. And it goes through what mites like, what mites don't like. So they like darkness. That's why in like aquariums, you see them in like the corners and stuff. They can climb surprisingly well. Like they're extremely mobile little bastards. And they like it sort of on the damper side, so they don't like dry environments. But it just talked about like the life cycle of them, all the sort of usual suspects for where they like to hang out, not only on the snake but in the cage. I forget who did it, but it was very in depth, and I had a much better grasp of like mites and how to treat them after reading that. Because it was always one of those things where you just read on forums like spray them down, or get this prevent a mite or whatever and spray this and then leave that in there for 5 days and then do it again. And like that all is fine and dandy, but until you have like I said, a better grasp of how that organism actually works and reproduces, it's much easier when you understand all that. It's much easier to tackle. So,
and I will say this too: is Smitty was the one who told me about your surroundings. So I kept getting mites on my quarantine rack, and luckily it was the quarantine rack. But I'm like, man, why do they keep coming back? And I realized it's the carpeting. And I'm spraying the enclosures or the tubs. The carpet on the ground has eggs or mites in it. And
the eggs waiting. You can't see unless the eggs are in like a mass amount where they look like that white sort of dust, which that has to be a ton of eggs for you to be able to physically see that. That's unbelievable. Like,
So like what I've done is I've taken Frontline and just sprayed the carpet, just around where the rack is or whatever. Someone just said in there about, after you treat with stuff like that to remove the water dish, 100%. But what I like to do is I have an animal that has mites. I will immediately get a container and I'll pour in 1 or 2 inches of water, put that animal in there, let them get a giant drink of water if they want it. And at the same time, kind of like slosh them around a little bit to try and get some of the mites off, right, in that water. Then I'll dump that water down the drain. And then I will use my mixture that I'm about to tell you guys about to spray the animal in that container. I'll leave the top off, let the fumes come out. Then I'll put the lid on, leave it in there for a little bit, a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, not even, and then remove the animal while it's still foamy, and then put it back in its enclosure after I've cleaned the entire enclosure out. So what I like to do for my mite kill spray is I will get one of the, I don't remember how many milliliters it is, but it's the spray bottle from Home Depot. It's like the generic spray bottle that you use for like, home cleaning stuff. And I'll wash it out really, really well. And then I'll take the empty bottle and I'll put 6 or 7 sprays, depending on how like long the draw is of the spray of Frontline, into that large Home Depot bottle. Then I'll take like 5 or 6 pumps of antibacterial hand soap. And then I'll fill the thing to the brim with water, and I will shake it up and shake it up and shake it up and shake it up and dilute it as much as I can. And that's what I actually spray on the animal. But I will never, ever do that unless it has already had a really, really good drink of water, because I don't want it to be tempted to drink that poison. And at the same time, I do remove the water dish afterward because A, it already got a big drink, and B, I don't want it to go in the water dish to try and wash itself off, and now the water dish is contaminated with poison. So that's my personal personal way of doing it.
With the way I've done it, because I let that paper towel and stuff dry out really well, I have left water bowls in there, and I haven't had any issues so far. It's probably wise to go ahead and remove the water dish, or at least have a smaller one so that if they are all up in it, small in proportion to the snake. So obviously with like a larger Brettles or something, we're talking about a smaller bowl that they're likely going to flip over and flood everything with anyways. But
right.
That's one of the reasons I kind of like spraying the paper itself and letting it dry out completely, is because I don't worry about that as much. But I have, they mentioned predatory mites and stuff. I've heard of people using those. I think you've had some interest in those, or I know Nipper has. But...
Yeah, Nipper uses them for his Venomous, because let's be real, Nipper has all planted arboreal Venomous, and like that's like, you're not going to spray poisons on your plants and your substrate and your bioactive soil. Like, you're just not going to. So he got the Taurus mites, and it worked like a son of a gun for him. And he literally just sprinkles a little bit in every enclosure, and he never sees mites ever again. Knock on wood, I currently don't have any issues, but the minute I do, I'm buying them, because he had such great success.
Yeah, I don't know if Prevent a Mite is a thing anymore. For some reason, I'm thinking it is not around anymore, but
yeah, I don't think it is either. And
could be wrong.
I have a feeling that it was
just permethrin, wasn't it?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I feel like the idea of spraying an aerosol poison in your animal's enclosure is frowned upon these days. And I have a feeling that kind of contributed to his demise. I mean, don't hold me to that.
Maybe. But... I've heard of people using lice spray like Nix. I've never used it myself, so I don't know how accurate it's, like how well it works. But...
All right, so Nix works like a son of a gun. I loved Nix. Nix was like, because you could back in the day, you couldn't buy Frontline. You had to go to the vet, right?
Right.
And when you did go to the vet, it was these little capsules that you just squirt on the back of your dog's neck. So there was no easy way to get large volumes of Frontline. So we always use Nix, and it was a very, very similar recipe to what I just described with the Frontline. What my personal opinion is that they changed the recipe, and now it's lethal. And I would not use Nix anymore. Yeah, because I've had some friends that, you know, I gave them my recipe for Nix, and they did it exactly how I told them to do it, and animals died. And I really feel like if you're in a quick pinch and you can't get Frontline,
because Frontline, you can only get the Frontline spray online. Like I have not found. I can't. It's not at Tractor Supply. It's not at PetSmart. I've heard that it's at Petco, but I don't have a Petco close enough to where I'm going to drive cross county to go and get it. Like I'd rather just buy it on Amazon and get it the next day or whatever. But yeah, like I said, I think Venomite was just permethrin and some other stuff I thought, but I forget.
Yeah, and I'm hesitant. You know, Gendra is saying that they use lice spray. I'm hesitant to tell people the Nix recipe because I don't want people to. I mean, I'll just give a disclaimer. I mean, just do that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So what I'm about to tell people is I do not recommend doing this because I personally think that they changed the recipe, and I don't think it's the same chemicals. I think they're harsher chemicals now.
It's because the lice are getting stronger.
Right. But what we used to do is we used to buy the little box of Nix lice shampoo for children. And what it is it would be a small little shampoo bottle, maybe, I don't know, 6 ounces, maybe like 2 shot glasses, right?
It's $20.
And it came with a lice comb and instructions. That's all it was. And again, this is shampoo for children. And what we would do is we would take a 1 gallon store-bought jug of spring water, right? And you'd pop the top off of the spring water. You'd pour out a couple ounces so that it wouldn't overflow. And then you would empty the entire bottle of that children's shampoo into that 1 gallon of water.
See, that still seems strong to me. Like, well, even before that, it seems like a pretty potent.
Right. Concoction. So, and what you would do is you'd put the whole bottle in, and then you put the cap on the jug, and you would shake it. And you would shake that jug for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes until there is no more clumps of shampoo in there. And then you would pour that solution into a spray bottle and you would spray. And if you had poor ventilation, you killed that animal. It had to have high ventilation. And I feel like in the past, we had ventilation and it worked and it was fine. Obviously, you wouldn't flood the animal, but you'd take the animal outside in your hand, spray it in your hand in the open air, and then put it back in its enclosure, and everything was fine. And then probably right around 2015, 2016, something happened. Something changed. And I
sure. Like what if there's a chance that it was just that batch in particular? Maybe that.
I mean, maybe, but
I mean, I can't imagine that their quality control is that bad to where they'd have a batch that's like extra strong because of some mismanagement of measurements or something. But
like I said, if you're in a pinch, that might work, but I honestly don't condone it anymore. I don't. So you'd almost be better off going to the vet and getting a small amount of Frontline and doing it that way. You know.
So. Yeah, that Frontline spray is awesome. I mean, it's like $30 a bottle now for the smaller bottle. I think I saw the bigger one at one of the Show Me Snake shows earlier in the year when me and Jake were up there at BlackBox last, and the big bottle was like $75. But I find that smaller bottle lasts me months, a long time, because I mean, I'm literally, I treat everything that I get for mites proactively, regardless of if I see them or not. I just, if something's in quarantine or something, I'm going to spray the paper regardless of if I see them there or not, because you know, the eggs are small, all that stuff. Like, you could have hitchhikers, whatever. So it took me a long time to really go through one of those smaller bottles, but that stuff works great. And I've never really had to worry about overdoing it or an animal getting sick because of it. just the ventilation thing, like you were talking about, making sure it's aired out well before it goes into a tub or a cage.
Yeah.
And I honestly haven't had an issue with mites in a very long time, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But I think it's because of that proactive, like preemptive treatment of the substrate and stuff ahead of time. So
yeah. And I think that I mentioned bringing the snake outside in the open air and spraying it. If you live in a place where you can't do that, I totally understand. I mean, even just in your bathroom, like over the bathtub, so you don't make a mess, that is 10 times better than spraying it in its enclosure and just closing the door. Like you're going to kill that animal.
Spray a towel and let it crawl through that. Like,
yeah, you can do that too. And I will say this
to rub it in
and ticks. Ticks actually, what I've done before, and this is probably not the best idea, but I had a wild caught animal that several wild caught animals that had ticks on them. And what we did is we restrained the animal and literally just shot each tick with a squirt of Frontline. So you're not like dosing the whole animal.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that would, the tick would fall off because it's like, oh my God, poison. And then that was just enough chemical to get in its book lungs and kill it. And you'd find the dead tick like on the paper towel or on the newspaper or whatever. I've also
Billy Jenkins asked if Frontline has a shelf life. If it does, honestly, I don't know. It's probably a very long time because I've had bottles literally over the course of a year that I used, and they worked just as well on day one as it did day 365. So
yeah, I don't think it does. I mean, it may for like sales purposes, but I don't think it goes bad. So plus it's in like your cupboard. It's not like it's sitting outside or anything.
Yeah, it's in an opaque bottle, so it's not it's not exposed to light. I don't even think it's light sensitive. Like I said, it's alcohol based. From what I can tell, it smells like rubbing alcohol when you spray it. Really strong of rubbing alcohol, but I don't think it has a shelf life, at least that is detrimental over a short period of time or anything like that. And just like with so many other drugs and stuff we use, it's like even if they're expired, they still have some efficacy. Just may not work as well as it did brand new, but yeah, you can get it on Amazon though, Mike.
I bought mine on Amazon. The Frontline.
Oh, Jeff sent me a picture of some Rite Aid lice spray and Prevenamite, and the ingredients are permethrin.
Okay.
In the same amount. So maybe Prevenamite's just pulled the wool over our eyes and has been charging us, an arm and a leg for lice spray.
Yeah, it could very well be.
Which, if your kid has lice and you got Prevenamite, just give him like a perm.
Yeah. Just give him a little squirt, like Aquanet. So going back to the initial topic of treating import venomous, again, goes back to locality-specific details, the type of the animal, and then de-stressing, hydrating first, then de-stress, then feeding and establishing a healthy animal, and then giving it if you need to, right? We can agree on that.
Did you ever have any venomous that came in that had a serious mite problem where it was like you had to get more hands-on with it, or like what's the protocol for treating for mites? Like when you can visibly see mites on like a decent size Bitis or something, like what's the...
It's no different than a harmless snake. It's just larger. You know what I mean? And you're not hands-on. So, but I will say this.
Like when you get them all like serious and like the, around the eye caps and like, under the chin fold and like all the spots that they like to hang out. Like when you can see them and they're there in mass. Like what do you do with venomous?
So what in the past, what I've done is heat pits I don't mess with, because I don't want it to affect the snake's sensory, like its sensory concept. And I know that doing the other treatments, eventually those mites hopefully will migrate or die and fall off. But I'll first say that I cannot recall a time ever where we got import venomous fresh out the bush and they had mites. Even Boiga.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever opened a crate.
It's
and
a
like,
captive thing.
Yeah, I see.
I don't know where they originally where they're like native to, because it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I haven't seen any mites on like wild caught corns or rat snakes. Like, I've seen like orange ones that don't seem like the normal snake mites that we see in captivity. But
right.
It's funny because Jake found that yellow rat not that long ago, really nice dark one, and he's was asking me about treating it for internal parasites and stuff. This thing's beat to hell, but it's a really good looking snake. And I told him, he's like, man, I'm worried about, if it has internal stuff, if something spreads. And I'm like, dude, frankly, like, honestly, I have more faith in a wild caught yellow rat being cleaner than a lot of the stuff that you see for sale.
Yeah.
From other collections. I was like, in terms of like pathogens that are extremely contagious and like contaminants and stuff like that.
Right.
I was like, I don't worry about crypto and stuff with wild caught animals. Like, I don't worry about snake mites with wild caught animals. Like, I don't worry about internal worms with wild caught animals, because unless you're doing like direct like fecal oral transmission or something like that, I was like, then maybe you have to worry about it. But I told him, I was like, honestly, dude, like, I don't worry about wild caught stuff, at least native wild caught stuff, as much as I do what you get from other people. But
yep, agreed. So Dylan says, if you're going to spray your kids with Preventamite, do it in a well-ventilated area or over the bathtub. And Scott Eiper has joined us in the group chat. Hello, Mr. Scott. And he says that mites are originally from Africa, and it's in Ty's blog on snake mites on the Nature for You website.
I'll hunt that down and post that in the THN community group as well.
Yep. So we were talking about before. Oh, we were talking about big venomous. So, for example,
like mambas. What do you do with mambas?
Spray them.
Something fast and
I mean, dude,
Ferrari
dude, mambas I've just literally like went to an air hole with my mite mixture and just was like douse them. You know what I mean? And I've also done it where I had an Angusticeps and a Neodesha, which was a fucking mistake to begin with.
That sounds like a nightmare.
And what I did was I cracked the glass just enough for the head of the nozzle to go in, and I sprayed my diluted mixture, and it made like a fog. And then I went on the side of the cage and I went, and I blew out as much as I could, and it worked. It worked. I mean, I don't recommend people do that, but it worked. What I was going to say is,
what the fuck?
Mamba was hotboxed, straight up hotboxed. But no, all joking aside, what I've done in the past with like big rattlesnakes or like Eastern Diamondbacks or puff adders, what we'll do is we'll tube the snake, okay? And if there's like stuff in the eye, in like the eye ocular like nooks and crannies, so I'll tube the snake. And again, this is not with heat pits. This is just normal animals. Tube the snake, 2 people, 1 person's holding the tube and the body of the animal. And then I have really, really long Q-tips. I have like 14-inch Q-tips. Right?
Yeah.
And what I will do is I will then soak the tip of that Q-tip, and you can't get the ones that are cottony. You get to get like the nylon
spongy
ones.
The ones that are like the makeup brush kind of material.
Right, exactly. Well, not even the makeup brush. Like they make like a nylon one that doesn't fray. Because like like cotton Q-tips, they fall apart if you look at them wrong. Yeah, don't use those. So
they get all stringy and like catch on things.
Exactly. So what we did is we got I've done this a handful of times where you take this 12 or 14-inch long wooden dowel Q-tip, right? And
see you later, Clint.
Good night, Clint. I put the Q-tip, I soak it in frontline. And then I take a set of long hemostats because I don't want to approach the front of the tube. If this is the front of the tube, I don't want to approach the front of the tube like this with the Q-tip, because now if the snake goes and the person holding the tube loses their grip for whatever reason, my hand's getting bit. So what I'll do is I'll actually, if this is the Q-tip, I'll take hemostats. I'll grab the Q-tip with hemostats, and now here's my tube, and now my hand is safe, right? And I go in and I just wipe frontline right there. like a football player, and that's worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's something I was just thinking about, treating stuff. It's like if this were, a really pissed off Viridis or, some other Mamba or something weird, it's like this is probably a nightmare.
Yeah. And Scott says, they've seen wild mites on Knobtails, which I think is interesting.
And I have no doubt that it's possible. Like that's not it at all. But I'm just saying, in my experience with the stuff we've had around here, be it Nerodia or anything else like that, like I've never noticed any snake mites.
Yeah.
On stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And Scott has officially called me a wuss for doing my mite treatment the way that I do it. Thanks, Scott. So, but yeah, I also think that I'm really interested in this whole Taurus mite thing. I really think it could be groundbreaking for venomous keepers. I really do. If not for everybody, because now you're not using chemicals.
I'd be curious to watch them do their thing. Like find some mites and then get one of those predatory mites and watch it under like a microscope or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool as hell. Cool as hell. Nipper's telling me it comes in like a little thing of sawdust.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know if the mites are the sawdust or the mites are in the sawdust, but he says I sprinkle a little sawdust in every cage and they all disappear. So,
and that's what I've wondered about that too. Is like, wouldn't you have to have a certain amount of predatory mites for them to keep doing their job? Like,
well, no, they die.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you have a certain population of snake mites and then you have predatory mites, how do you make sure you have enough predatory mites to handle the regular mites?
So from what I gather is the predatory mites live long enough to have wiped out the cycle for like 1 or 2 cycles, and then there's no more food and they die.
But you just keep introducing them until they're gone.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, and I don't even think so. Nipper was telling me that he went up using the whole container over the course of like a couple days because they're alive and they have to eat, they have to do something. So I don't know how that works.
What the hell does Nipper know?
What the hell does Nipper know? Silly Englishman.
That nerd.
But yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. And with Venomous, I think as long as you're doing it safely for you and safely for the animal, I mean,
there's more than one way to treat a cat, to spray a cat.
To spay a cat?
Spray a cat. If you want to spay it, I mean, go for it. But
yeah. So was there anything else to that subject that I'm missing or I'm forgetting?
I don't think so.
And another thing, always have multiple, so i.e. 2 or more containers large enough for the animal that you keep, because so many people have, they use another cage as a holding container. They use a trash can. Like with Venomous, we use a trash can. Well, if you need to soak something, you only have one can. What are you going to do? Yeah. So I personally, I like to have 5 or 6 different tubs of varying sizes for the specific animals I have. Obviously, I have more smaller tubs than bigger ones because I have more smaller animals than bigger ones, but always have options. That way you're not scrambling to find one, when you walk in the room and all of a sudden you have an infestation of mites on your puff adder and the puff adder's 5 foot long and you don't have a container to put the thing in other than your communal trash can, which you don't want to put in there because then everybody's going to get mites. You know what I mean? So have containers as a storage or a segregation container for every animal you have.
Use a 15-quart tub for a big ass puff adder.
I've done it.
And have fun getting that lid on.
I actually, when we used to do the classes at Underground, I used to show people how to put properly and safely how to put a 5-foot monocle cobra in a large deli cup. And it's very cramped, but when you're, evacuating for a hurricane or something and you need to conserve space, it can be done. You just got to be careful and know exactly how to do it. So,
claro.
Obviously, they don't live in there. It's only temporary. So,
animal abuser.
Yeah, that's me.
Billy asked if I've locked in Daytona yet. I have not.
What are you doing, Smitty?
I don't know.
That would have been the first thing I did at the new job. I would have said, look, thank you so much for hiring me. I need these dates off.
The boss is out of town. He's been out of town for like 3 weeks.
Oh, but again, how long have you worked at the job?
4 weeks.
Well, you're a poop face.
6 weeks.
Yeah, I would just tell him flat out. I'd be like, oh man, I'm committed to this.
Oh yeah, no, that's not the issue. Like I'm not worried about the time off. There's just other financial factors that may affect the.
I get it.
The happening. So
I get it.
We'll see. I'm gonna try to, but at this very moment, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air. So
okay.
Still get the kazoos made.
Excellent. Oh, and you definitely give me a price because that's going to be debaucherous.
I haven't. I keep hounding the girl who's in charge of that whole thing right now, and she's like, I keep forgetting, which is fine because they've been crazy busy. Kazoo business is booming, just so everyone knows. There is actually a very large demand for custom kazoos.
Awesome. I love it. Absolutely.
But I also wonder if we got like 500 of those things and passed them out, if we'd be told not to come back to Daytona.
Nah, it'd be all right.
Like, who's the asshole who passed out these?
It's
got our logo on it. Like, I don't know, man. We'll say it was the NPR guys. It's like a practical joke.
Yeah, right. Start a feud. Oh, geez.
The great kazoo debacle of 2022.
Yeah, right. Oh gosh.
I got one made that's black and has like the acid green cap. Like I made it colors match the THN stuff. And so I was like, dude, we need to get some of these made for Daytona.
Yeah. That's the idea, man. That's the idea.
It's not a soccer horn. It's much smaller. Much more obnoxious noise than a soccer horn, but
yeah.
I actually don't mind it. Like I listen to it day in and day out now because they do the tours and it's like an open floor plan for the museum and stuff. And it's rough. It doesn't bother me. Like I usually have one in my pocket, and like we have this kid that's doing like tours and stuff right now. He's like 14, and so like while he's doing his tour, like I'll be messing with him from the other side of the wall. Like while he's talking, I'll like make some stupid noise with my kazoo or something, or I'll pop around the corner and stare at him and like be playing it while he's talking.
Nice. That's good. That's good.
He's like, this is a test and you're passing. He's actually stupid good at it. Like
nice.
He's really got a knack for it.
Excellent. He'll be a museum curator in no time.
Just like to mess with him. He's the new guy. I'm no longer the new guy. He came on board like 2 weeks after I did. So
awesome. I like it. It's good.
Like he came in, I was like, thank God I'm no longer the new guy.
So what else you got in your bag of tricks?
I was going to talk about like wholesaling stuff, but I might have to.
Yeah, we'll save that for another night.
We'll save that for another night because that's a whole nother.
Yeah, that's a
theological bag of worms.
Yeah, right. Oh man.
See if he has any skeletons in his attic.
Yeah, right. There was another thing I was going to bring up, and now I can't remember it. We were talking about earlier. We were telling stories of squirting stuff with noxious chemicals. And now I can't remember. Damn. It'll come to me at 2 a.m. I'll text you.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. False, Billy Jenkins.
It's interesting that Scott said that the mites are African, because now, like, I really am thinking about, like, I don't think I've ever seen African imports with mites on them. I mean, it could be that we did preventative measures and they fell off before they really became noticeable, but I just don't recall it. And then I think about most of the species that we would get would be very arid species, echis and stuff like that, and it's all desert, man, and it just seems like that's not where they would want to survive.
Yeah.
Some of the fossorial stuff, some of the tropical stuff, that's got, ticks, and ticks come in from time to time. But
I'm checking my egg cam right now to see if anything's hatching yet. It's not.
oh yeah, why are you not showing it on the screen?
Because I don't have any way to do it.
If you had a Mac, you could.
I do have a Mac.
Oh, well
I
then
don't have an
it.
iPhone.
Oh, okay. So you're just 50% poopy?
I love their computers, but their phones can go to hell.
Blasphemy.
Mm.
Good night, Billy Jenkins.
Yep, it's
The
we're
witching
at that 2-hour mark. Smitty's got to stay up and get this bad boy posted. So
excellent.
the Mac is whack. Get out of here. I thought you said you were leaving, Billy Jenkins.
Yeah, go to bed, Billy Jenkins. This is a school night.
It's the house of learned doctors.
It's the house of learned. I smoke weed with Johnny Hopkins.
This is Johnny Hopkins and Sloan Kettering. They were blazing that shit up every day. This episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. There you go. Right there. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram, BlackBoxCages.com, BlackBoxCages.com, BlackBoxCages.com. And Puget Sound Pythons, Facebook and Instagram. Check them out. If you're going to be in the Pacific Northwest region and at that show that they have coming up, the PCNWRS, check them out. I believe they're vending. If they're not, they're probably hanging out. So hunt them down. And we'll be back Thursday for THP 60-something, 66, 67, or 68. It's one of those. I believe Derek Dykstra and Pia will be joining us to talk about the RPI stuff that they've got going on.
Excellent.
And I'm sure there's some other things that I'm just drawing a blank on at the moment, but
it's good.
That is the plan. So we will see everyone then. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Later.
Bye.